Hello and welcome back to the channel. Fleeing the storm in Warsaw, we headed south to visit Lublin, a beautiful city with almost 700 years of history, before heading to Zamosc, built to be the ideal Renaissance city. And if you like our video, do not forget to like it, subscribe and activate notifications so that you know when we upload a new video. Lublin, which has 350,000 inhabitants and nearly 700 years of history, owes its development to the trade route that extended from the Black Sea to the Baltic Sea and Central Europe. We arrived in the late afternoon, fleeing the storms in Warsaw, and it was a good decision for us, as at night the water and especially the hail caused great damage. From a nearby parking lot by the castle, which was quite lively due to a fair, we began our visit to the city. After some stairs, which lead us to a bridge connecting the castle with the historic center, although there is no intention to visit the castle first, we see that it is quite crowded with tourists at that moment, so we retrace our steps and enter the historic center through the Krakow Gate. This gate, along with the Krakow Gate, were the two main access gates that opened in the 14th century wall, and between which Grodzka Street runs, the main street of the historic Old Town, where if we look closely at the ground, we will see the boundaries of the city's ghetto during the German occupation in World War II marked. Walking down the street surrounded by curious buildings, we arrived at Krakow Square, where you can see the foundations of the old church of St. Michael the Archangel, which was built here in the 13th century, and where you can see, as in many other places in the city, small statues of goats, as this animal is the symbol of the city. And continuing along Grodzka Street, this time looking up, we will come across another curious sculpture, a tightrope walker in homage to the Carnival of the Magicians, although we will lower our gaze shortly, to continue admiring the beautiful houses that line the street before reaching the square. We arrived at the Old Town Market Square, dominated by a large neoclassical building, the Crown Court, where the nobles of the region came to resolve their legal disputes. The 16th century building is located on the site of the old town hall, which was completely destroyed by a fire in 1389. In the basement, if you find it open, an underground route of more than 200 meters begins along the entire historic center, with several rooms where the history of the city is exhibited. Even if you suffer from claustrophobia, the plaza does not disappoint at all, as it is full of beautiful palaces and houses that invite us to take a break, taking the opportunity to have breakfast in one of the many restaurants in the square, where, like the rest of Poland, you can eat very well for little money. After regaining our strength, we exited through one of the sides of the square and passed by the Monastery of the Dominican Fathers, founded in the year 1342 by King Casimir the Great. Arriving at the limits of the old town where a small door opens, we walk along Jesuita Street until we reach a large tower called the Trinitarian Tower, right in front of which and under the sign of an executioner, lies the so-called Stone of Misfortune or Stone of Bad Luck, which originally was located in Bernardine Square and was used for executions, where the executioner left a notch cutting off the head of an innocent. Since then, it brings bad luck to anyone who touches it. And without getting too close to the stone, we arrived at the Trinity Tower, which originally was a gate connecting the Jesuit college with the historic center of Lublin. It was reconstructed in the 19th century in a neo-Gothic style, adding 20 more meters to the initial height of 40 meters. Currently, it houses the Archdiocese's Sacred Art Museum, and if you find it open, you will enjoy a great viewpoint over the city from there. Passing through the Trinity Tower, we arrived at the Archcathedral of Lublin. The construction of this Renaissance Baroque temple took place between the years 1586 and 1625 at the behest of the Jesuits, who presented a project inspired by the Roman Church of the Gesù. Although it was destroyed during World War II, it was magnificently rebuilt both on the outside and the inside, beautifully decorated with frescoes on both the walls and the ceiling. Inside, there is also a crypt with the tombs of several bishops of Lublin. We left the Archcathedral and re-entered the historic center, arriving at the Krakow Gate. It gets its name because travelers from Krakow would arrive here after covering almost 300 kilometers, as it was part of the royal route from Krakow to Vilnius. And during the 17th century, both the gate and the tower were redesigned in Baroque style, and today they divide the historic center from the more modern part of the city, housing the Lublin History Museum inside. Once we passed through the Krakow Gate, on a street with an unpronounceable name that means something like suburb of Krakow, we headed towards Lithuania Square, the new center of Lublin, passing by the new town hall and the Church of the Holy Spirit. We arrived at Lithuania Square, and in front of the Church of St. Peter and St. Paul, we were greeted by the neon sign "I Love Lublin." On one side of the square, we find something very curious, the Lublin-Vilnius portal, which like a magic eye, connects both cities of Poland and Lithuania, countries with a shared history. As in the 16th century in Lublin, the agreement was signed that gave birth to the Kingdom of the Two Nations, a valuable fusion between the Kingdom of Poland and the Duchy of Lithuania. Here in Lithuania Square, we also find one of Poland's multimedia fountains, with light and sound shows throughout the summer, as well as the tomb of the unknown soldier. On one side of the square, behind a large family palace, we find the monument to the victims of the Lublin Ghetto, a city where more than 40,000 Jews lived, which is why the invaders created the ghetto in 1941, until March 1942, when 30,000 of them were sent to the Belzec extermination camp, and the rest to the nearby Majinek camp, located on the outskirts of the city, which we will visit tomorrow. And now we retrace our steps and arrive at the castle, much less crowded than when we first arrived in the city. The fortress was commissioned by Casimir II in the 13th century, making it one of the oldest royal residences in Poland, housing the National Museum of Lublin inside, with a vast collection of the city's history and art. Once inside the castle, from the keep tower, which you can climb to the highest point, you will have a magnificent view of the city, or admire the precious frescoes of the Holy Trinity Chapel, the place where we concluded our visit to this historical, to head to Zamosc in the afternoon. After the morning visit to Lublin, we headed to Zamosc, whose old town holds the title of one of the 7 wonders of Poland. And although we experienced a severe storm on the way between the two cities, upon arriving in Zamosc, we were greeted by a magnificent afternoon. From the parking lot, we reached the fortress, protected by 7 bastions, which encloses within it a city that was built from scratch as an ideal Renaissance city, founded in 1580 under the supervision of the Italian architect Bernardo Mirando, when the great chancellor of the Republic of the Two Nations conceived it to be perfect and to be the seat of the bourgeoisie and aristocracy of Poland, having to meet a series of requirements, such as being located on a river to ensure the transport of goods and hygiene, that 2 independent levels would be built, the lower one for activities and the upper one for the nobility and bourgeoisie, that under these levels there would have to be navigable canals to facilitate communication and transport, or that the width of the streets must be at least half the height of the adjacent houses, which should result in a city that is both beautiful and functional at the same time. And that's how Zamosc was born, resulting in a small but very beautiful city, and we strolled to the center, to the large market square, a big square of 100 by 100 meters with an enormous sense of spaciousness that makes it seem much larger. The square is surrounded by the houses of the richest in the city, merchants and bourgeois, not only Poles but also Italians, Greeks, Sephardic Jews, and Germans, seduced by the trade routes that pass through here, and the concept of an ideal and harmonious city. Zamosc is especially known for its town hall, with its monumental double staircase in the shape of a fan, which was actually added in the 18th century during the height of the Baroque period, an architectural style that was added in other parts of the city in the years following its founding. The town hall is located on one side of the square, rather than in the center like in other Polish cities, reinforcing the sense of spaciousness of the square, from which we will have the best views after climbing the beautiful double staircase that leads to the town hall and its lovely 52-meter high tower. But this square is not only famous for its town hall, but also for the famous houses that surround it, such as the Armenian Houses, which are the best preserved in the entire square, and a symbol of the city's openness, welcoming all those who wanted to settle there. After the town hall, we find the small salt market square, one of the 3 main squares of the city, which was the place where salt was traded, arriving in Zamosc from Ukraine by the end of the 16th century. Continuing the visit, we arrived at the cathedral, which we couldn't enter because a mass was being held. For its design, architect Mirando took as a reference the churches of the 15th and 16th centuries from his hometown, Padua, which was converted into a cathedral by Pope John Paul II, as it was previously a basilica, and which houses the pantheon of the city's founder. From the cathedral, we entered the historic center and continued enjoying its streets, ending the visit outside the fortress, in one of the many green areas that invite for a stroll and relaxation.